All right, Ryan, tell us what is on your radar.
So the only reason that Washington is still talking about a $3.5 trillion reconciliation package that Democrats want to pass comes down to leverage. Centrist Democrats and moderate Republicans in the Senate earlier this summer, in an effort to stave off that $3.5 trillion bill, agreed on a smaller $550 billion bipartisan infrastructure package. Joe Manchin took the lead in negotiating that. It passed the Senate, but it hasn't yet passed the House. And progressives have said that they're going to hold it up as leverage. If centrists won't agree to the $3.5 trillion deal, then they won't sign on to the other one. Here's Bernie Sanders this weekend explaining what's now called the two-track strategy.
And the truth of the matter is, Dana, as you may know, many of us made a major compromise in going from the $6 trillion bill that we wanted, supported by the overwhelming majority of Democrats, down to 3.5. Mm-hmm. And the last point that I would make on this, I know that Senator Manchin worked very hard on what's called the bipartisan infrastructure bill, $550 billion of new money to rebuild our roads and our bridges. What we have worked on is working both of those bills in tandem. They go together. And it would be a really sad state of affairs for the American people, for Congress, if both of those bills went down.
Do you think that's possible, that could happen right now?
Yeah. I don't think it will happen. I mean, I think, look, this is a very difficult issue. What we are trying to do in this bill is more significant for working families than any bill probably since FDR and the New Deal.
So in order to try to break that two-track strategy, Representative Josh Gottheimer tried to stop the reconciliation bill recently, and he won a concession that the bipartisan bill will get a vote on September 27th. But he didn't get a promise that it would be passed into law. Progressives still have a say in that, and if enough vote to stall it, then the two tracks stay alive, and so does the leverage. So do progressives have the spine, and do they have the votes? At The Intercept, we partnered with the American Prospect and the Daily Poster to canvass the Democratic Party and see how many were publicly willing to put their names behind a promise to block that bill until both can move together. And it doesn't take that many. The bipartisan bill, according to Henry Cuellar, is likely to get around 10 to 12 Republicans. Democrats have a 4-seat majority, meaning progressives need somewhere between 14 and 16 people committed to blocking it. Though having a bigger cushion would be smart in case an unexpected number of Republicans support it. Now, as a side note, Pelosi herself has said she wants both moving at the same time, and if she's stuck by that, bringing her leadership team and others in the party, it would be blocked easily. There are also a lot of committee and subcommittee chairs with a lot of incentive to keep the two tracks together. But for the sake of this discussion, let's assume progressives have to make their stand alone. Do they have the numbers? So according to our canvass, only 17 Democratic lawmakers have publicly committed to keeping the legislation tied to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, either in public statements or in comments directly to us. The usual suspects are on the list. AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, and Jamal Bowman. CPC leaders like Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, Mark Pocan, and Katie Porter are on the list too. So is progressive veteran Jan Schakowsky and freshman Mondaire Jones, along with Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Ed Perlmutter, and Andy Levin. There are some interesting names too. Brendan Boyle and Veronica Escobar, for instance, not known as flaming lefties. Some of those names, like Boyle and Escobar and Perlmutter, suggest that the commitment to the two-track strategy is much deeper than just the squad. Pramila Jayapal told me this: there are a lot more, but not everyone is ready to be public. We had the majority of our caucus in our previous whip counts, and we expect the same now. We will release names later if we have to, but I feel confident of our numbers. Now, Jayapal might have good reason to feel confident in her numbers, but if you want to feel confident in them, there's actually something you can do to help our journalism here. Dozens of these members of Congress didn't respond to our request for comment, but they often do respond to constituents who call or write. They also notice when they're tagged on social media, and they sometimes reply there. They have events back home in their district where you can pose questions to them. It's obvious why it's important to get public commitments. That way, if they go weak at the knees at the last minute, we know who they are. Yesterday on the show, Kim and I discussed whether or not the Democratic Party is completely irredeemable or whether there's some use in fighting to push this reconciliation package over the line. If you're somebody who thinks it's worth a shot, this is something you can actually do. If you do hear back, flag it for me on Twitter or email me at ryan.grimm@theintercept.com or flag it on Twitter for friends of the show David Sirota of the Daily Poster or David Dayan of the Prospect, and we'll update the whip count. There are less than 2 weeks between now and the 27th. To me, it's worth a shot. Now, Kim, meanwhile, as they're fighting for this, the thing is springing leaks all over the place. So you already have some pharma-friendly Democrats who are saying that they're not willing to support the drug price negotiations. You have Democrats who are friends of the rich saying that they're not going to support this or that tax hike on the rich. And they only have a margin of, like I said, 4. You know, they can lose 3 votes on each one of these provisions. But if they do block that reconciliation bill, then they lose their baby at the same time. So I don't know. What do you think? Is this something that people can actually start to rally behind over the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love that you talk about these topics, because you're right that these types of stories don't get enough coverage. And I think we are all the smarter for it when you actually go into this and cover this. So I really appreciate your reporting on this. I love it. As much as some people might be like, oh, infrastructure is so boring, but it isn't. This is what we need to be talking about, these reconciliation bills, these infrastructure bills. I mean, these are going to actually change our lives. And my big question is, does Gottheimer believe that he has enough of the sway, like similar to Nancy Pelosi? I wonder if he thinks he has enough sway to be able to peel away some of those 17 Democrats who've come out saying the 2 bill, they're essentially going to, I would imagine, vote present on the infrastructure bill rather than vote for it, or I doubt they would vote against it. Do you think they would just say present? Well, enough of them to kind of.
There'd be a couple options. One, they could try to do some type of parliamentary maneuver that would send it to a committee that would not be voting against it, but be stalling it, because they're not against it. They just want to slow it down. Right. But if they vote present, then they actually need double the numbers.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they would actually, if it is an up or down, this is going to the president's desk or not, depending on this vote, they would have to vote no. They don't have an option at that point of just voting present.
My guess is it's going to be stalled, because I don't think Gottheimer has enough sway to, like I said, peel off any of these Democrats. And, I think that one thing that has to be, look, infrastructure is important. We have crumbling roads. We need to build things. There's a lot in that infrastructure bill that we need. But I think right now, American families are more concerned about paying bills. And this reconciliation package says, listen, we're going to help you live your life and actually be comfortable in the middle class, and even in the lower class, give you a chance to join the middle class. And so, what are some of these Democrats thinking? And to our discussion about the Democratic Party being, redeemable or not in these sorts of packages, and I worry that this package is going to be whittled down the same way that Obamacare was, where ultimately it will pass, it'll be a big win, Democrats will hang their hat on it, but at the same time, it'll be watered down quite a bit. But, look, for me, I don't support either party anymore. I've given up on both of them. But I do individually support certain. Right, I do support certain individual measures that either party will put forward, and this is one of those that, believe me, Ryan, I will be calling my rep. Ted Lieu is my rep, so good luck to me. I'm going to be calling him, and I'm going to be saying, "What are you doing? We got homelessness everywhere. We got families struggling. Get on board with this."
Yeah, Ted Lieu should be on this list.
You're right. You make a good point. People don't understand how much, this sounds like a cliche, you don't understand how much power you have as a voter. You actually don't have a lot of power as a voter, but as an angry constituent caller, if you keep calling your representative, you do have a lot of power, because a handful of phone calls to them actually can spook them into taking some kind of action. It's amazing how much they pay attention to that sort of thing. Right. You'd be surprised.
Where is it considered harassment? I'm kind of wondering, how often can I call Ted Lieu?
I think you're entitled, a call a day, 3 mentions on Twitter a day, 1 Facebook. I think if you spread it out on different platforms, then it doesn't go too far. But I'm going to do it. Ted Lieu, you're on notice. You're on notice, buddy. And I think your approach is right. I think nobody should be fully like jersey on team players around this. Like you have to say like, look, we believe in these particular policies. Let's say it's the $300 a month check for kids. And right now, the Democratic Party is the vehicle to move that from expiring next year to pushing it through to 2025, or maybe even making it permanent. And if that's the vehicle that we have to make that permanent, then that's the vehicle that we use at this moment. I think you're right. You don't want to get caught up just rooting for whatever they do.
Yeah.
But this is a good package. I mean, we need this. The American people need this.
Yeah.
Kim, we're looking forward to your radar coming up next.